Hello everyone, my name is John, Thai body worker and deep tissue massage practitioner for Norfolk Muscle Therapy. Welcome, European Youth Orchestra. Pleasure to speak to you today, and I hope you find something useful from what I've got to say, and also from the other presentations of the other practitioners. So before we get started, I just want to show you a quick relaxation technique. This is dead easy. You can take it anywhere, and you would in fact be doing everyone a favour if you were to pass this on and show it to anybody you think might benefit from it. We need is a pair of hands, and what I would like you to do is, in the space beneath your middle finger, just below the knuckle, there's a little nodule in there. Take a thumb and apply pressure to that point, okay? And then you spin your hands slightly, and on the other hand apply pressure to exactly the same spot with a finger. So you are applying pressure to two identical spots on each hand, okay? Now put your hands somewhere comfy, and then just sit back and relax, close your eyes and take a deep breath. Keep applying the pressure and exhale. And this is the first of 3 breaths. So inhale again. Really feel your shoulders just melting away, and exhale. Inhale again and exhale. Open your eyes, let go of your hands. Feel better? So what am I here to talk to you about? Well, hopefully some of the knowledge today will help you deal with and adapt towards being limited in your ability to socialise and travel freely. You are kind of being forced to live very differently at the moment, and how you deal with that is entirely up to you. Your mindset is pretty important at the moment. So I've got a few suggestions which might help you in improving how you think about the situation you're in at the moment. Well, you've got to accept it. Unless any of you are postgraduate virologists with access to a fully funded laboratory, there isn't a great deal that you can do to reduce the timescale over which this pandemic is going to continue, except of course by adhering to the guidance issued by your government and not contracting and spreading the problem. The problem is here and it's thoroughly embedded, so waiting it out really is our only option. So a good place to start is to, at least once a day, or as often as you can really, just take the time to be grateful for at least one thing in your life. Every now and again it's really useful just to take a deep breath, and as you exhale just say to yourself, I'm really grateful for whatever it is, your friends, your family, your health, where you live, whatever is good about your life. Just take time to appreciate and be grateful for it. Another thing is to try to view everything in a loving way, being kind, about having goodwill. You can start this locally with the people that you know and love, and gradually expand it out into your community, working towards having goodwill towards people that you don't even know. That kind of thinking is really good for you. It's really good for your community and the way you interact with people. It's also useful to have compassion. It helps if you think of others, what they're experiencing, what they're going through, by listening and understanding their problems and their issues. It gives you an excellent insight into why they are behaving the way they do. Chances are, if they're behaving in a hostile way or along those lines, then they're acting out of fear. And if you understand that, and if you take the time to listen to them, it can really help. They won't know you're helping, but just listening to people sometimes, letting them unload, it's enough to make them feel better without really having to try very hard. Another thing is to about sharing and embracing joy. If you come across somebody or something that makes you happy, then it's a really good idea to recognize that, focus on it, and share it with people. So these suggestions for your mindset, they're not my idea. I didn't come up with these. I'm not that enlightened. They are my interpretation of something called the Brahma Viharas, and this is part of the foundation of Buddhist teaching and lifestyle. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not traditionally the religious type. I do like to view the world from a scientific perspective, believe in what you can consistently observe, etc. But when it comes to how you think and trying to shift that towards a happier, more productive mindset, these are pretty useful tools. And when you break it down in its simplest terms, it's a self-managing system based on emotions. So it's based on how you feel at any given time. So in simple terms, you have goodwill, which is to wish for others what you would wish for yourself. Simple. There's compassion, and that is using goodwill when you come across suffering. Okay, just think about that. And there's empathetic joy, and that is using your goodwill when others are happy as well. It's about joining in. And the last one is equanimity. So this is quite an important one, and it kind of supports the other three. It's like a constant check against the other three. And it's also a protection for yourself. And its basic terms, it's if you can't stop suffering, no matter what you try, you're kind of obliged to prevent further suffering. And that's usually to yourself. And it's not about walking away from people or being cold-hearted, but if you can't fix something, don't make it worse and don't spread it. And that is particularly relevant to our current situation. So as I said, these are only suggestions that might help you. They certainly have helped me. At the moment, I can't work. I'm not going to get any financial support from the government. I'm going to lose a few things along the way, mainly like parts of my business, a car, other stuff that I can't afford because I can't work, can't visit family and friends. But by applying these Brahma Viharas to my thoughts, I'm actually really grateful for what I've got, and I'm also really excited for the future. So with the mindset work out of the way, I want to move on to some more practical things that you guys can do for yourselves. So the work I do with people is massage therapy. I treat people with Thai bodywork and deep tissue sports therapy. Usually people need help with pain, and some of them even have the insight to see me regularly to prevent pain. So, kudos to them. I particularly want to talk about the Thai bodywork. Why? Because it's old. It's really old. Really effective too. Originally, Thai bodywork was developed by a man who was he was the GP to Buddha, and it was intended as a way for people to keep themselves healthy. And later it became a practice which was applied to others by a specialist practitioner. And that's basically what I want to be, and it's probably going to take me the rest of my life to learn a fraction of the knowledge in this field. So as young musicians, you're probably pretty bendy and pain-free at this point in your life, and to keep that way, particularly given that you'll spend a great deal of your time holding an instrument in a certain way, violin, viola players, you're probably going to end up with a degree of shoulder and neck pain at some stage in your lives. Woodwind section are susceptible to aches and pains related to breath control around the ribs and shoulders as you can control your breath. Percussionists and pianists, when I see these kind of people come to me for work, they've usually got their heads are sort of hunched forward as they're concentrating either on something like a xylophone or timpani or whatever, and spending the hours and hours doing these things, you're going to condition your muscles to change shape and act in a certain way. And sometimes it's good for you, conditioning is good for you, but being stuck in a certain position, it can lead to pain and discomfort. Also, people who play larger stringed instruments, you guys, you've got to carry that thing around. So staying fit and healthy is going to be a big part of your career. So a good place to start is by finding out where the problem areas are. And you might already know where your aches and pains are, but if you think, oh, actually, I feel okay, I want you to, next time you get a chance, take time to lay down flat on a floor, on a hard surface, palms facing up to the sky and feet falling slightly apart. And lay there with your eyes closed and focus on your breath and try to relax. And you start to discover where you feel any little areas of tightness or discomfort. That position that you're laying in is called the anatomical position. In yoga, it's also called shavasana, which is corpse pose. But you'll just be laying there face up and in a position which is neutral for all of your body. And in that neutral position, if you've got any pain or discomfort anywhere, then that's usually the trigger about where stuff is starting to tighten up, seize up, or give you problems. So once you are aware of where you've got little areas of pain and discomfort, what can you do about it on your own? Well, the short answer is massage it. Give it a rub. Doing just that is going to shift stagnation. It's going to move toxins on, promote circulation, so your body can deliver fresh nutrients and even start a repair if it needs to. So if you start to work around these areas on yourself, like for example, if you've got a sore shoulder, stiff shoulders, trumpet all day, have a little bit of a feel around and find where the real sore spot is. And you'll find this one point which is worse than all the others. Now have a think about that spot and think to yourself, does it need poking about? Does it feel like it needs to be poked about? Or do I really feel like I should be leaving that alone? And if it's the latter, then that's the kind of thing you need to go and see a medical practitioner about. You know your body as well as anybody. So if it feels really dodgy, then don't do this. Go and see a medical practitioner and have it looked at. But if after, go back to the shoulder again, if you find that, it's quite nice to hang out in there, then find that one spot which is the most painful in all of it, and just press into it and stay there. Just hang out there. And it's probably going to hurt a little bit. But as you focus on maintaining that pressure, and just focus on relaxing, you are going to find that pain starts to subside. And you'll think, am I not pressing as hard? And you are, but the pain is beginning to subside. Now as you release, you can give it another bit of a rub, get things moving around there again. And you can rinse and repeat that process. Just find that one spot that is a bit sore, a bit achy, and just hang out in there applying pressure. It's going to do to your muscles the same process as a sponge. Muscles are very similar to sponges. If you have a sponge that's been sitting around for a while, it hasn't moved, but the contents of it haven't moved, then it's going to begin to stagnate. Could even go all dry and crispy, but that's not likely to happen to your shoulders. But nevertheless, the analogy is that if you squeeze all of that waste product out of your muscles and then release it, it will reabsorb fresh fresh nutrients and keep things moving. And that's pretty much what you want to do. Now, usually you're going to do that naturally just by movement, and this is why athletes don't often suffer from trigger points. In my experience, they don't often suffer from muscular dysfunction, which is associated with sporadic exercise or non-movement. Their injuries as athletes are generally sprains and tears. They're overexertion. They're pushing the limits of their bodies until they break, and that is different to what conventional muscle pain is, in my opinion, which, as I said, is generally created by stagnation from inactivity or holding something in a specific position for a long amount of time. That's where these trigger points start to develop, and you can shift them. You can get them moving, and it's a great way to relieve pain. So I'd like to give you an example of you guys as musicians in particular can do for yourselves. It should be part of your warm-up routine. You're going to warm yourselves up to a certain extent, but this is just another tool for your toolbox. I know for a fact that singers, they will warm up. They will do vocal and breathing exercises in anticipation of a performance. You guys, you're going to be obviously tuning and scaling in anticipation of a performance. That warm-up process, even before that, even before you've taken whatever it is you play out of the case and sat down at your seat, you can warm up the parts of your body which are under the most amounts of stress for your performance, and that's going to give you a head start towards remaining obviously fit and healthy through your career. It's going to allow you to remain consistent. You're not going to get so fatigued. If you've got a particularly challenging piece to play and you find that a good way through the performance, your arms and your shoulders are starting to ache, fingers are starting to hurt, this can help reduce the likelihood of that happening. So if you play an instrument which is particularly demanding on your fingers, then it's definitely a good idea to be warming up your arms in advance. And what I'm using here is it's called a duckbill grip. Okay, so you keep your fingers flat and you're trying to squeeze tissue between flat fingers and this pad of your thumb in your hands. You just find a good meaty bit, squeeze and drag. You can squeeze and drag the tissue. You want to pull it away from its adjoining structures and pull it away from the bone. And it works the other way too, the other way up. You're looking to squeeze and push the tissue down with this belly of your thumb. Squeeze here and pull it away. And the whole idea is, again, you're trying to create a bit of space between these structures. You're trying to make a bit of room between where all these muscles meet each other. So give that a couple of minutes, both sides of your arm. Have a fiddle around, find out what feels the most effective. Looking for some good meaty parts to pull apart. And once you've tried that for a couple of minutes, you're probably going to find that your arm is going to feel quite warm and loose, probably a bit more spongy, a bit more give in the tissue. So once you're at that stage, then you can start finding these spaces between where the muscles sit. If you just sort of feel, you can feel these natural channels, these natural spaces between these groups of muscles. And that's a good place to apply some pressure and just let your thumb sink into the tissue. And what that's going to do, that's going to separate the muscles apart. And in those spaces is where you've got sort of large blood vessels, nerves, lymphatic system. They all need their room to operate themselves. And as you move these tissues apart, those transport systems, they get a bit of room themselves and they operate more effectively. So fingertips, hands are going to get a better blood supply. They're going to have a better nervous response if their supply mechanism is working as well as it can do. So you can extend that up to the top of the arm, anywhere where you find a meaty section. You can just give it a squeeze and pull it away from the bone, get it warmed up, and then follow up with pushing the bulk of the tissue away from the bone using a thumb or some fingers, just making a bit of room in there, yeah? Should take you about 5 minutes of doing this. And once you're done, just take a moment to notice how, like this hand, for example, this hand feels a bit tingly and buzzing compared to this one. I mean, this one's done some work too, but it's not had the space created. So this hand now feels completely different to this one. So there you go. That is something which you can try. If you find it's benefit for you, then share it, pass it on, tell others, and I wish you all the best. Good luck for the future, everybody. Take care.